Save the date. The Nats Chat end-of-year podcast party will be Friday night, October 10th at Walters. Start time is TBD.
Now the pitch, swinging a high fly ball, deep left field, way back, Wood looking up, it's going, and gone. Goodbye. A majestic, soaring, high fly ball, landing in section 104. A two-run homer for Mark Vientos, his ninth of the year, giving him 38 runs batted in. And it gives the Mets a big crooked number here in the top of the third inning. 5 on the board. It's the Mets 5 and the Nationals nothing. Brett Baty leads it off. He's walked and grounded to first, 0 for 1. First pitch swung on it high in the air to right center field and deep. Cruz back looking up. It's going, and gone. Goodbye. That one into the second deck in right center field, lands in section 241. Brett Baty has hit his 14th home run of the year for New York. And his RBI number 40, and it extends the Mets lead with a leadoff batter in the 6th inning. It's now the Mets 6 and the Nationals nothing.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Two of the biggest problems for the Nats since their season turned sour beginning with the month of June were on display on Tuesday evening. The lack of home runs and the struggles of starting pitcher Jake Irvin. An 8-1 loss to the New York Mets at Nationals Park in Game 1 of a 3-game series. The Nats in this game got out-homered 4-0. Jake Irvin, another bad outing, 6 runs in 6 innings. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 50-75, worst record in the National League East, second worst record in the National League, and their run differential now is minus 158, second worst run differential in the NL. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website that you can check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. The Nats on Tuesday evening, again, got worked by Mets starting pitcher David Peterson. He allowed 1 run in 8 innings with 10 strikeouts versus 1 walk. The Nats, in a 5-0 loss at the Mets on June 11th, got worked by Peterson. He, in that game, tossed a 6-hit shutout with 6 strikeouts versus no walks. So the Nats now are 2-3 on their 7-game homestand against the 2 best teams in the NL East in the Philadelphia Phillies and New York Mets. Brad Lord and Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitchers for the final 2 games of the series. Good news there. But Mark, more problems for Jake Irvin, and again, way too little offensive firepower for the Nats.
I hate to say it, Al, but was this the most predictable outcome we've seen all year? It felt like this is exactly how you expected this game to go. I think the only surprise, if you want to call it that, is that the big 5-run inning against Jake Irvin came in the top of the 3rd instead of the top of the 1st, because we know that's when he has all his troubles. Otherwise, this one went exactly to script. Jake Irvin, one really bad blow-up inning that cost him. He still churned out 6. He gave them, depth in the game, but it was a Patrick Corbin-esque 6 innings and 6 runs with an ERA over 5. And on the flip side, an opposing lefty who they have seen plenty of times, and there was nothing they could do against him. They had no adjustments. They figured out nothing against David Peterson. They were chasing everything. He had them eating out of his hand. And he is now, the team, the Nats, are now 1-13 all time in the 14 games that David Peterson has pitched against them. Some of those are in relief before he became a full-time starter, but they have never had any kind of success against him. And in this case, it was up to 25 consecutive scoreless innings before they finally got to him in the 8th inning of a game that was already well lost. There was nothing surprising about this game, nothing original about this game. This went exactly the way you expected it to, and that's a bad thing.
The Nats in the game, 1 run, 5 hits, 1 walk, 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. The 5 hits, a triple, a double, and 3 singles. So rough games for James Wood and C.J. Abrams. Wood is the Nats starting left fielder and number 1 batter, 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Abrams as the Nats starting shortstop and number 2 batter, 0 for 4. Look, David Peterson is a good pitcher. He's a smart pitcher. But, he's not some Cy Young candidate, and the Nats make him look like that. And I think that is what is so aggravating about this. And to your point about Peterson having this history of mastery against the Nats, it's interesting listening to Nats interim manager Miguel Cairo during his postgame press conference on Tuesday night, talking about how Peterson approaches every batter in a different way. So there is like a high baseball IQ in effect with Peterson, but that the Nats can't display any improvement against this guy, can't figure anything out. It doesn't speak well for the players, but this also is the kind of thing that doesn't speak well for the coaching, that you can't come up with something to get better results against this guy who you have faced, it feels like, about 1,000 times over the years.
100%. And you can come into it with a game plan and say, hey, we know this is what he tries to do. This is what we need to try to do against him. And maybe he does change it up. And it sounds like, according to the players we talked to after the game, that he really did take a different approach almost every at bat. So there was a lot of unpredictability to the way that he was going about it. So that's fine. You say, okay, maybe the game plan going in wasn't exactly what you were hoping for, that it didn't work out the way that you thought it would. But along the way, you got to figure something out. And what was clear, and I'm an amateur sitting 500 feet up in the press box, but what was clear to me is that this guy is going to keep throwing you soft stuff away and down in the zone and get you to reach for it. And that's what the Nats did. Everything is a weak ground ball to the left side of the infield for the right-handed hitters. The only two who had any kind of different approach, and it worked, you saw Andres Chaparro in his first game back from the minors. His first at-bat, singled the opposite field. That was their first hit of the night, first only hit for quite a while. Then he actually pulled the ball in the sixth inning because he finally got a pitch he could do that with. And then the only other one who showed anything along those lines and an actual in-game adjustment was Dylan Cruz, who hit 2 ground balls to the left side in his first 2 at-bats, playing right into Peterson's hands. And then in the third at-bat, he did what you have to do with a pitcher like that, is he understood they're not coming in on me. Everything's going to be away. Stay on it, stay closed, hit the ball the opposite field, and he drove a ball off the wall in right center, almost homered, wound up being a triple. Good on Dylan Cruz, and I don't know if that was coaching along the way or he figured that out himself during the course of the game, but nobody else in this lineup was able to figure that out the way that the rookie did for them, and that, Chaparro seemed to do well against him. And yes, he's a smart pitcher, and yes, he was going about it in ways that kept them guessing all night long. But at some point, you have to be able to figure it out and say, what I'm doing is not working. I've got to do something different, especially when it's happened so many times against the same pitcher and the same style of pitcher. Every lefty who faces them, who pitches in the style of David Peterson, 90-mile-an-hour sinkers, change-ups, breaking balls, keep it away, keep it down in the zone. I feel like we've seen this result so many times.
We have, and what is so difficult with this is we never know what is going on in the dugout. So we don't know if the Nats hitting coach Darnell Coles is telling these batters exactly what they should be doing, and these batters simply are not doing those things, or if Coles is as flummoxed as the batters and he has no clue, just like the batters have no clue. Like, we don't know what's going on there, and I think that's a key thing to admit. Like, we don't have all the information in a spot like this. What we do know is that the results were putrid in this game, and the results too often in recent years have been really bad. You mentioned Dylan Cruz. Was good to see him have that triple. He is the Nats starting right fielder and number 6 batter, 1 for 3 with that triple. Andres Chaparro, he is back. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 7 batter, 2 for 2 with a double, a single, and a walk. He looked good. The Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having recalled Chaparro from AAA-Rochester. That was the corresponding roster move to the Nats on Sunday afternoon, announcing having optioned infielder Jose Tena to AAA-Rochester. But I mentioned the Nats getting out-homered 4-0. The homer has so dried up with this team. Take this into consideration here. The Nats over 125 games have 118 home runs. For comparison's sake, the Mets over 125 games have 164 home runs. Now, we understand the Mets payroll is a wee bit higher than that of the Nats, and the Mets have done a lot of things well in recent years that the Nats have not done. But, you just think about that, 164 homers versus 118 homers over the same amount of games, 125. And, you think about, okay, a difference there of 46 home runs. And if you spread out 46 home runs over the course of 125 games, what that could mean in terms of wins and losses. And I'm not breaking any news by saying this, but you just see how valuable the home run is and how much this team, the Nats, still is in dire need of more offensive firepower, is in dire need of more home runs. And, for all of our conversations earlier in the year about the Nats being better at the home run, and they were earlier in the year, that has disappeared. That has evaporated over these last few months.
I want to say, I could be wrong on this, but I feel like we discussed, and I'm going to say it's like late May, early June, in that range, that the Nats were definitely middle of the pack in the major leagues in home runs. But I think even beyond that, I think I had noted that they were, if not ahead of the Mets, maybe right behind them, that they were neck and neck in home runs for the season at that stage, at least a third, maybe even a little more than a third of the way through the season. And that was surprising. And I don't know that we expected that to continue. But the real point there was that the Nats were finally hitting for power after several years of that not being the case. And as we said, it makes up for all the other offensive deficiencies that you have. And now looking at it, they're 28th in the majors in home runs. That is a huge drop off from where they were. And it does underscore just how much they were relying on the home run early in the season and how much they benefited from it because they were playing close to 500 ball at that time. And when they don't have that in their back pocket and they have to try to string together hits to score runs, this lineup is just not equipped to do that. And so I think it's a huge issue. You want to believe that as these younger hitters get more experience, guys who, like a Brady House, who should be a power hitter. He only has 2 so far. They both came in one game. That over time, he's going to figure that out. But right now, there aren't a lot of guys you feel good about hitting the ball out of the yard. And that includes James Wood, who got hot there for a little bit, but really looked ugly in this game. And even in his return, his hot streak here, there's been, I think, 1 or 2 home runs, but not anything close to what he was doing during the first half of the season.
Yeah, James Wood's homers have dried up. C.J. Abrams' homers have dried up. The Nats are getting basically no power from Brady House. Dylan Cruz just came back, but they need homers from him in a desperate way. And nobody else on this team really has provided home runs to any degree this season. We've talked about Josh Bell better lately, as we've noted, but, it's not like he's hitting bombs left and right. The home run has disappeared for this team, and it's been one of the real problems over these last few months. Hey, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. Labor Day is coming. Summer is winding down in the Washington, D.C. area. Your air conditioning is working overtime, just trying to keep your house and you cool and comfortable. What can you do to make a difference? Well, you can replace your old or builder-grade windows with windows from Window Nation. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the following deal that you're about to hear about here on the Nats Chat podcast. This month only, you can schedule a consult and get 50% off all window styles. Plus, you could even get your windows with 0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for 2 years. 866-90NATION or windownation.com. Tell Window Nation that Al Galdi from the Nats Chat podcast sent you.
The pitch, swinging a line drive to the right field line, trouble if fair, it is. It's down and goes into the corner, and it will clear the bases. Soto in from third, Nimmo scores from second, pulling into second is Jeff McNeil. With a 2-run double, his 15th two-base hit of the year. And he adds to his RBI total, giving him 37. 3 runs home in the inning for New York, the Mets 3 and the Nationals nothing.
Jake Irvin, man, is this guy in a rut. Irvin, in this 8-1 loss to the Mets on Tuesday evening, 6 runs in 6 innings. Another bad outing. He gave up 8 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and 4 singles. He issued 3 walks. He recorded just 3 strikeouts. He threw 101 pitches, 63 strikes, 38 balls. Now, He did not give up a run in the first inning. As we have talked so often, Jake Irvin has had so many problems in so many first innings this season. He on Tuesday evening tossed scoreless first and second innings. So you said, all right, here we go. Well, then came the top of the third. Irvin in that inning allowed 5 runs on a home run, 2 doubles, a single, and a walk. The homer was a 2-out, 2-run homer by Mark Vientos to left field on an 0-2 pitch for a 5-0 Mets lead. The homer went a projected 419 feet per Statcast. And Irvin in the top of the 6th gave up a leadoff first pitch homer by Brett Beatty to the second deck in right field for a 6-0 Mets lead. That homer went a projected 428 feet per Statcast. Jake Irvin now for this regular season, 26 starts. The ERA is up to 5.30. That is the 3rd worst ERA among all qualified pitchers in the majors. And that starting pitcher, Mitchell Parker, has the 2nd worst ERA among all qualified pitchers in the majors, 5.83. Irvin's whip is 1.40. And Irvin has allowed 29 home runs, the most home runs allowed in the majors. It is brutal to see what has happened to his season. Those numbers are gory, and his season has gone from being pretty good to pretty bad to now a disaster. Like, it's harsh to say that, but I don't know how else you say that. One of the worst ERAs in the sport, the most home runs allowed in the sport, and right now when he takes the mound, it's very hard to have any real belief that good things are going to happen.
And even though he got through those first 2 innings scoreless, it didn't really feel like he was on his game. He was throwing a lot of pitches, throwing a lot of balls. He walked 2 batters there in the second inning. You know, he struck out Juan Soto in the first inning on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and said, ooh, okay, he's got good stuff tonight. Everything else was 91, 92. There were even some fastballs that were 90. He threw, and I don't even know how this is possible, his slowest fastball was clocked at 89.8, and his hardest changeup was clocked at 89.9. His hardest changeup was harder than his slowest fastball. I don't know what to make of any of that except to say that there should be ideally about an 8 to 10 mile an hour difference between your fastball and your changeup. And his were like almost identical, maybe at best a couple miles an hour different. If you're throwing 89 mile an hour changeups, that suggests you have an elite arm. That's like what Cade Cavalli is throwing. And yet Irvin doesn't have the fastball that would match up with that. He is really out of whack right now. And the big inning absolutely continues to do him in. The home run that he gave up is on an 0-2 curveball that's right over the plate. There's 2 things wrong with that. First is the execution, obviously, of the pitch. But even beyond that, and he said it himself, is he was questioning the pitch selection at that point because he felt like they had Vientos out in front on the other stuff that he was throwing, the sinkers, and he decided to throw a curveball, which kind of everybody knows is his strikeout pitch. And so he felt like Vientos was sitting on it, waiting for it. And then when you put it on a platter like that over the heart of the plate, you see what happens. I think there's a lot going on in Jake Irvin's head right now. I think there's a lot going on with his mechanics right now. None of it is good. In a perfect world, they would find a way to skip a start or put him on the IL or even send him down to work on some things. But as is the case with Mitchell Parker, they don't have a real viable alternative at the moment. And so he's going to keep going out there and finish out the season. And you just hope that it's not, going to cause further damage or long-term damage to his psyche, because he's getting hit around right now pretty extensively.
He seems like someone who's lost his confidence. I don't know how you could have a high level of confidence with what has happened with his season. I've thought about Irvin and Parker, and I brought up to you the other day the notion of, would they demote Mitchell Parker to AAA-Rochester with how bad his season is going? And we all get it. The Nats lack organizational starting pitching depth. Although at this point, with how bad these guys are, I think there is a compelling argument for how much worse could it be. Just call up anybody else and have that person be a part of the rotation. But, given the state of the season, given the state of the team, there probably is value in just having these guys remaining in the majors and just seeing what happens. And if it continues to be bad, you're not losing anything. And if it gets better, at least you're perhaps gaining something. But, you do need to find out, like, okay, are we moving forward with these guys as pieces or potential pieces, or do we need to move on from these guys after this season? And at least you can say, especially with Irvin, I mean, you are getting a substantial sample size with him over the course of these last 3 seasons. And so you are truly finding out what he is and what he is not. And so from that perspective, I actually think there's a case to be made of it's best that he just stays in the majors and you just see what happens. And yes, it's rough right now. And yes, it's hard to watch. But you know what? This entire season has been rough and hard to watch. And you're not going anywhere at this point. So you might as well see what he can do pitching at the major league level for the rest of this season.
So I agree with you, but my concern there is this. If they knew that the coaching staff was returning next year, and you trusted that group to work with him and try to figure this thing out along the way, I think there's real value in that. The problem, as we know, is that there's going to be a whole new coaching staff next year. And maybe some member or two of the group are back. And Sean Doolittle's probably, I'm going to guess, the most likely member of the current coaching staff to return in some capacity, just because of his combination of his association with the organization and also his, forward-thinking analytics approach to things that should match up with whoever the next GM is. But is, 6 more weeks of working with Jim Hickey, who's almost certainly not going to be back next year, is that going to accomplish what you want to accomplish? Probably not. Now, the alternative doesn't make a lot of sense either. So I agree with you. It is best to just put him out there and hope that he figures some things out along the way. I just don't love the fact that the people trying to help him get through this, in all likelihood, not going to be a part of his future if he is here again in 2026.
It's one of the real frustrating aspects of having a lame duck managerial staff because, you have this feeling of like, what's the point with everyone unlikely to be back? At least with Mike DeBartolo, you could say, well, maybe he is in fact running baseball ops moving forward. I don't know anyone who believes that this coaching staff is coming back anywhere near to what it is right now. And it may be, complete wholesale change when it comes to the coaching staff. The Nats relief pitching in this 8-1 loss to the Mets on Tuesday evening. Not good. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 2 runs in 3 innings. Our guy, Connor Pilkington, man, he was going so well for a while. It is not good right now. He allowed 1 run in 1 inning, but there's more to it than that. He, in the top of the 7th, allowed a run. He did the first batter he faced, gave up a leadoff opposite field home run by Juan Soto to left field in the top of the 7th for a 7-0 Mets lead. The homer went a projected 408 feet per StatCast, and Pilkington in that top of the 7th also issued 2 walks. He threw 25 pitches, just 13 strikes versus 12 balls. P.J. Poulin, he tossed a scoreless top of the 8th with 2 strikeouts despite giving up a leadoff double. And Jackson Rutledge allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He in the top of the 9th gave up a 2-out full count solo homer by Jeff McNeil to right field for an 8-1 Mets lead. Your updated home runs allowed number for Jackson Rutledge in this regular season, 14 in just 56 and a third innings. We have talked about this before, but boy, Rutledge gives up homers like crazy.
It's outrageous. It's really remarkable from someone who has been in the big league bullpen basically the whole season. And aside from maybe a very short stretch in April, there really hasn't been anything encouraging about it. He hasn't really done much of anything to suggest that he should stay up here, but he does remain. And we're getting close to that point where I think you start acknowledging that he's not a part of the future around here, which is very tough to say for a former first-round pick. Let's go back to Pilkington. You called him our guy. I believe only one of the two of us was suggesting that he get a shot at the closer's role after Kyle Finnegan was traded. That was not me. That was you. It has not gone well for Mr. Pilkington since then. And there have been home runs and there have been walks and hit batters. It hasn't been pretty. You hope he can figure it out because we certainly saw stuff that made you get excited, say, oh, hey, here's a lefty who can throw 97, and maybe they found a little diamond in the rough here. What we've seen over the last few weeks, though, yikes, it has not been pretty at all from him.
In my defense, I believe I asked a question about Connor Pilkington closing. I don't believe I advocated strongly for that, just for the record. But yeah, it is not good right now for my guy, Connor Pilkington. I'll go ahead and take ownership of him. It's bad, no doubt. And the Jackson Rutledge thing, yeah, a year ago at this time, I brought up the idea of, is it time to pull the plug on him as a starter and turn him into a reliever? Here we are 1 season into him as a reliever. And the question now is it time to pull the plug on him, period, as a member of this organization?
The batter at hand is Stott with a 3-2 count. Runners second and third. Gray fires. Swing and a miss. He struck him out on a high fastball. What an escape by Josiah Gray. He's fired up heading back to the dugout. 2 pop-ups and a strikeout. And they set off the fireworks even though the Phillies did not score.
Some pitching news for the Nats in the lead up to this game on Tuesday. So the Travis Sikora Tommy John surgery is going to go down on Wednesday. So we do have that. And then we have Josiah Gray. He finally has thrown to live hitters in his comeback from UCL surgery. So a good sign there. Still, I guess, unclear if/when we'll see him pitch in the majors this season, right?
I tried to pin Miguel Cairo down on that pregame, and he just wasn't having it. He talked his way around it, and I guess I understand why he doesn't want to commit to anything one way or the other. But at the very least, it was nice to see that he has been cleared to face live hitters, something that I kind of thought was going to happen prior to this point. I'm going to guess that Josiah himself thought it would happen prior to this point. It was a necessary step for him to take. Now, there are still several more steps that have to be taken before he's pitching in any kind of game, let alone in a big league game. But in theory, there is perhaps just enough time now if he went on the proper timeline of facing live hitters a few more times and pitching a simulated game. And, maybe within a couple of weeks, he is off on a rehab assignment and maybe we could see him up here before the end of the year. I don't know that that's going to happen. It may not. I hope that he at least goes and pitches in some kind of games, even in the minor leagues, before the end of the season. I feel like there is value in that and some peace of mind going into the offseason. I would hate for him to show up to spring training next year having not pitched in any type of competitive game in really almost 2 years at that point. I would love for it to happen in the big league level. If it doesn't, I hope it still happens at some level so that he knows, yes, I'm good to go. The organization knows he's good to go, and he can come to spring training and just prep for the season and not feel like he's still rehabbing and not feel like he still has to prove that he can actually get out there and face real hitters in a real kind of game. So we'll see. A good sign, though. It was something that had to happen here eventually. I was glad to see that it did finally happen.
So July 24th, 2024 was when Gray underwent his surgery. And remember, he didn't just have the Tommy John. He also underwent an internal brace procedure on his right UCL. You know, this is now the third consecutive year that we have a Nats pitcher coming back from a UCL surgery of some kind, and the comeback is taking longer than we anticipated in terms of him pitching in the majors. Now, each situation is different, and I'm not trying to be alarmist with Gray, but 2 years ago, Tanner Rainey, last year, Cade Cavalli, this year, Josiah Gray, and we've had these conversations of like, okay, is he going to pitch this season? Is he going to be ready to pitch in September? How's he doing? And with Rainey, it took forever. With Cavalli, it took forever. Again, there are other circumstances. And with Gray now, it feels like it's taken a longer time. And I guess we just got spoiled with guys like Jordan Zimmerman and Steven Strasburg with how, quickly they came back and how their comebacks, it was like clockwork, the way they returned from their Tommy John surgeries. We know with these guys, it has not necessarily been that way. Like it has not been a given that each guy would pitch in the season that we thought he might be pitching coming off the surgery.
They always say when guys have Tommy John that the timeline is 12 to 18 months. And we sort of assume that it's going to be 12 if everything goes as planned because we had seen evidence of that from other guys in the organization over the years. If it does take longer than that, if it takes 15 or even 18 months, it doesn't necessarily mean that things didn't go right. It just means that their own personal rehab didn't go as quickly as some others. And maybe in some cases, it's actually the organization trying to slow the process down. And maybe there's a little different philosophy now. I remember back both those guys, Zimmerman and Strasburg, who had it in late July, early August. It was right around that early August point that they both had the surgery. And I remember in both cases, there was a strong opinion that, hey, it's important to get them back here in September to make several starts. I think it was like 4 or 5 starts for each of them to then go into the next year. Maybe that's just not the organization's philosophy at this point, is that a couple of September starts are that vital to it. Going off of history, I feel like it is, maybe at least to make 1 or 2 just for that peace of mind factor. But there may be a little different philosophy now in terms of that, and to say it's not worth rushing back just to try to do that. If it means waiting till next spring, so be it. The Cavalli thing was obviously very frustrating, but so far the results have been great, even if it took a lot longer than expected. You hope in Josiah Gray's case that one way or other we are seeing him pitch in the big leagues early next season and that he is both healthy and effective. It is a little frustrating, though, just because I know he said himself the last time we saw him up here, he was targeting September for return. Now, again, it could still happen. There is just enough time to maybe make it happen now that he is facing live hitters, but they're going to have to expedite that, and they pretty much can't have any setbacks or change of plans at this point if it is going to happen.
There's not a ton to look forward to in your National September. It would be nice to have a Josiah Gray start or two to look forward to. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like to sponsor the program, contact the man who runs the podcast, Tim Shovers, so see what we can do for you. Again, that email address is natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have game 2 of this 3-game series between the Nats and Mets on Wednesday evening at 6:45. Brad Lord will be the Nats starting pitcher. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Here's Lowe, swinging a drive, sucked up.